To sum, given an array of integers nums and an integer target, return indices of the two numbers such that they add up to the target. You may assume that each input would have exactly one solution and you may not use the same element twice. You can return the number in any order. Okay, so we need to traverse this array and we need to return the indices of the array which sums up to the target. For here, like 2 plus 7 is equal to 9. So 2 is at index 0 and 7 is at index 1, like 0 and 1. So we need to return 0 and 1. So that here 3 plus 2 plus 4, target needs to be 6. So 2 and 4 adds up to 6. So we return 1 and 2. So the brute force solution is to use two nested loops, one at I starting from 0 and j starting from I plus 1, and we'll check if nums of I plus nums of j is equal to target. If it's equal to target, then we can return the pair of the index I plus j. If it does not matches, then we can just increment j here and then check again for the same condition until we get a solution. So here in this example, I will be starting from 0 and j will be starting from I plus 1, that is 1, checking if nums of I plus nums of j is equal to target, that is false. So we will just increment j and then check again. So nums of I plus nums of j is still not equal to the target. So we will increment the value of I to the first index and the j to the next index and then check for the same condition if nums of I plus nums of j is equal to target. When the condition is true, we have found the pair, so we can return I plus j. In case while traversing, if we don't find any solution, we just have to return an empty array. So the time complexity for this solution will be O of n square. And the space complexity will be O of 1 as we are not using any extra space here. So we can iterate over the array using a for loop with a variable I, then create another for loop with a variable j starting from I plus 1. Now we can check if nums of I plus nums of j is equal to the target, then we can return the indexes of I and j. If not found, then we can return an empty array. So the most optimal way you can solve this question is to use a hash map. So in the hash map, you will store the number as the key and the index as the value. So you start traversing from the 0th index, and if the value is not inside the map, then you will add it into the map with its corresponding index. Then we move to the next element and add that into the map. Now we need to check if the target minus the value we are at, here in this case 7, so the target 9 minus 7 is equal to 2. If this exists in the map that we have created, then we have found our pair and we can return the pair. So here in this example, the first element, the map is empty, so we directly add this element into the map. So the num is 3 and the value is its index, that is 0. Then we traverse to the next element. So now we will check if target minus the num value, that is 2 here, the target being 6 and the num value being 2, if the value 4 is present in the map. If it's not, then we just add this value to the map. Now here 2 with its corresponding index 1. Now we can move our I to the next element. So check if the value, the num value, the target 6 minus 4, so 6 minus 4, that is 2, if 2 is present inside the map. So here it is. So we can just return the index of this value, that is the 2, and the index of this value 1 in the answer. So the time complexity for this question will be O of n as we only be traversing the array, and the space complexity will also be O of n, and as we'll be using an unordered map In the worst case, we'll be keeping all the n element inside the map. So our space complexity will go to O of n.
So we create an unordered map that will store the values and its indexes. Then we traverse over the array. Then we can keep a variable num to track the current element. Then we can check if the map is not empty, and we can find the target minus num in the map. Then we can return the index of target minus num and I. If not, then we add the num value and its corresponding index to the map, else we return an empty array.